Welcome to the Music Business Buddy, the podcast decoding how the modern music industry actually works. I'm Johnny Amos, industry consultant, artist manager, producer, educator, and author of The Music Business for Music Creators. Every Wednesday, I explore the ideas, technology, and industry shifts shaping the future of music. This show helps creators navigate the rapidly changing business of music.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. In this week's episode, I am joined by Maxwell Zotz, who runs Rocketship.music. Now, Maxwell Zotz is a kind of, he's a strategist, he's a music executive, he's an entrepreneur, and he has co-created Rocketship, which is a company, a brand new company that really fascinates me. You've probably heard me talk on this podcast before about the idea of an artist-centered ecosystem. And I think what that actually means is giving kind of independent artists and smaller independent labels the same tools as bigger labels. And I think Rocketship are a really good example of that. So just imagine putting out new music and kind of going, well, I don't really know where this fits. I don't quite know what the metadata is or what genre or mood is attached to it or what the targeted demographic should be, because I just made the music and I haven't really thought about that kind of stuff. And that's kind of been a problem until now, perhaps, right? That is what Rocketship.music does, right? So it compares your music against other music to understand exactly where it fits. So I think this is going to be a pretty useful tool for many people all over the world. So let's get into it. I'm going to play the interview now. So Zotz, welcome to the Music Business Buddy. It's good to have you here. I've read a lot about you and it's good to have you here. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good. No, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm really, really excited about what Rocketship is all about. One of the biggest battles, let's say, that sort of artists often face is in figuring out, what their music is, where it fits, what the demographic information might look like. And because I think some artists just kind of make the music and go, I don't know where it fits yet, And I think one of the things that kind of makes this sort of artist-centric ecosystem is artists having the same tools as labels, right? Now, it seems to me that Rocketship seems to be able to kind of build an understanding of where a song fits in the landscape. Have I understood it correctly?
It does, and that was a first step in terms of like really giving the power back to the independent artist, and it was really important for us to have a starting point in terms of understanding of, when promoting a song, you're either shooting in the dark and hoping that your gut of who to reach is accurate, or using science and data. And, I come from an advertising background, and the Fortune 500 companies of the world are all using data to make advertising decisions. Why aren't musicians?
That's a very good point. Do you know what? This is something I've spoken about on the podcast a few times, is that there's so much to be said for looking at other industries and going, what can we take from that industry that we can put into music? And you've just stumbled across something superb there. I love it that you've done that. By thinking laterally like that, it creates an opportunity, doesn't it, to go, hang on, what can we do here to actually help people? Why aren't we doing this?
Absolutely. And I think artists are at a natural disadvantage. And before we even get into AI music creation, just the nature of who artists are in terms of creating artwork, and putting it out there in a vulnerable state. And having managed musicians for many years, I have a very different mindset, and I'm a type A business person. So when I introduce it to an individual that I'm, in the music industry, they're like, oh, like, what do you create? And I was like, I create nothing. I'm here as support to those that do create. And as a manager, I saw the difference, the disconnect between an artist who just wants to put their music out there isn't thinking the way an advertiser or, a business person is. And that's partly what managers are there for. But you will also recognize that the independent and amateur and developing artists, there are not enough managers for that in part because of the revenue model, because of the money that's at their disposal to motivate. So I get back to the thought process of, it makes sense that artists don't know how to market their music. And Rocketship exists in an attempt to try to democratize that space and give some power back to those indie artists.
I love it. I love it. I really congratulate you for doing that, for spotting that, for bringing it over from another area into music. It's so helpful. It's strange, actually, because when I first read about what you've built, it was one of those moments where I thought, why has no one done that yet? Like, like a lot of good ideas, right?
There is a lot of reasons why no one has done that. And I'm gonna hit that head on. That 20 months ago, when this concept was being kicked around, the scalability of A&R and being able to identify the audience for an artist and a song and seeing its trajectory and whatnot, there's a lot of reasons why. And the core reason is the legal manner in which you can educate AI on copyrighted music. So right now, Johnny, do you know why ChatGPT can't listen to your music?
Well, I would presume because it doesn't have the permission to train on copyright material.
Correct. And for most, that's like understandable. For a wider consumer audience, they have no idea. They're like, well, why don't you just put your song in there and see what it says? Like, I've had investors say that to me. There's a really funny Podcast Saves America did a bit about a month ago, where the host actually like farts into a recording and puts it into ChatGPT just to see what it would say. Like, it's just a fart, and they put it in there, and the ChatGPT came back and started describing it as this cinematic experience, as in, like, this sound was profound and that they should license it this way. It's not, it doesn't have the ability to listen. So we worked very hard and partnered with Loeb and Loeb, the #1 music, IP attorneys in the world, to find a defensible and ethical and legal way to educate AI on, 50 years of music. And did so with the hope that context could help the human artists of today reach, their true audience and find success. So it's not to train. You'll see in the music AI creation space that there is this conversation and legal battles over the rights of training AI. We're not in that conversation because we're also not creating new works of art. We're simply being able to add context to the new music that's being created by humans.
Yeah. It's kind of, I totally get it. By the way, if anybody were to say, "Oh, what you're doing here is working with copywritten work in order to," I'd say, no. That's not at all what it is. It's like taking a tree and going, right, in order to figure out the species of this tree, I'm going to put it into this forest.
Yeah.
Right. And then
it gives context.
Yeah. It's exactly right. It's not like you're harvesting copywritten material.
No.
You're just figuring out its location. I get it. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you. I totally get what you're trying to do. And I love it. I really do. I think it's brilliant. A lot of artists do worry about AI, especially in regards to the role of creativity, which is different, right, from what we're talking about here. But you do take a different view. Where should AI support artists, right, and where should humans remain irreplaceable? Do you have an answer for that?
I think that the conversation of AI music and the creation of it is like pretty overtapped. Like, everyone is talking about that. And the conversation that I want to be having is, with an influx of 40% more music being created via AI, what does that mean for the humans who are making their music? How should they be looking at AI in general? If there's this fear that their music is going to be, trained on, etc., I can appreciate that. And I want to create an environment where that doesn't happen. But at the same time, coming from the advertising world and knowing that small business, big business across at least America are using AI for efficiency, for, getting projects done quicker, smarter, faster. Why should musicians not be in that same boat? And so being able to take a work of art and have AI listen to it in a manner that then creates a marketing suite to be able to streamline activities is not a profound thought. I think many people could get there mentally. How we did it is unique. And I think that, as musicians think about where AI is being used, Meek Mill, was on X or Instagram talking about that he uses Claude, like big time rapper using Claude. I think that was profound for a lot of people to hear because they're like, oh, yeah, that does make sense. I can streamline the copy of my social post, or I can organize, my output, or whatever it is. It's efficiency. And I think we need to be there if we're going to compete with AI creation. And that was your question of like, what does this look like in a world for musicians with, AI coming into music creation? Well, we need to combat it with that same technology.
Also, I think it's useful for artists to be able to use Gen AI, right, to do exactly what you said, to save time, whether that's copy for a post, as you suggested there, or even a strategic thing sometimes. No, I love it. What does A&R look like to you, Zotz, in 2026? Are we moving, from instinct and relationships towards, data-driven artist development?
I hope so, Johnny. Like I made a LinkedIn post when we launched the company, and I compared the current A&R strategy that I see of my peers, the people that I know, managers, label people, as slot machines. That they're like they're simply standing by and waiting for the TikTok algorithm to anoint a sound and start taking off, and then they're throwing money, sometimes stupid money, at that sound in an effort to bring it in-house. At the same time, we're seeing Grammys and major awards, but also just major touring artists succeeding, not because of their music, but because of their influencer status. So now labels are signing influencers and turning them into artists rather than identifying artists and scaling it because it's easier. Because currently today in 2026, that social media has a profound effect on the scalability and the speed in which you can get that music, to people. And I totally recognize that. Do I believe that the Grammy nominees of this past year, those who came from influencers, and I'm not going to name names, but those who were influencers that became musicians are worthy of that? To be decided. But they certainly leveraged that. And I would argue that A&R is as much of a social media analysis as it is a music analysis. So Rocketship exists to try to level that playing field, but long term be able to identify signals earlier. In A&R, the big picture that we're trying to go after is, can you identify signals of music farther, earlier in the process than waiting until it hits an algorithm? And I think we can accomplish that.
Yeah. That's so it's just about being a bit more proactive than being reactive to it. Okay, yeah.
It's no different, Johnny, than how tech startups work. The idea that Y Combinator is an organization that deploys capital early to very young startups, tech startups, and they give not only guidance and advice, but small amounts of money for small amounts of equity in that project. I look at music as the opportunity of no different, that if done correctly, we could identify really, really great music, starting with a song and then going to the artist, that could, with the right capital behind it, reach new audiences more efficiently and better. And we could discover gems rather than just betting on the influencers of today to be able to like make auto-tuned music, or waiting for the platforms to anoint someone that they're next.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you know, just last week, I was thinking about you and your team and what you've built, because I was in a meeting and it was quite, I better not say too much, but there was an awkward moment, right? Because there was a marketeer there that said, we were talking about strategizing for a new artist, and the marketeer said, "Well, we have to put a single out first before we even know what to do next because we have to be reactive to the data." And the room went really quiet. And then I immediately thought of you and your team and what you built, and I thought, no, that's not true anymore, is it?
I don't think so. And I think that the first step in our platform is changing that narrative. It's also going to extend to the major labels. Right now in Nashville, there is a label that sits around the table. And when the artist presents their music, they have a score between 1 and 3. Is this a single or not? And it doesn't come down to the artist's ultimate decision. It's the collective group of like, which is the strongest song. That's a very subjective opinion for something that could make or break that person's career. Um, I don't believe that data and data alone can make an A&R decision. I'm smart enough and have been doing this for over 15 years to see that like so many other factors besides historical context can reflect in someone being successful. But the starting point of like where someone's audience is and the potential for that song based on historical and other analysis and data points is a really great reference point. And I think it's more rooted in fact and less in, subjective opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. In fact, actually, that point's an interesting one because it takes us back to the time-saving thing again. I mean, let's say, for example, you've used Rocketship to inform what a strategy might hopefully look like, and then you do it and it works, and you go, "Wow, we're a couple of singles in now, or moving towards an album, and we've kind of got the answers that we wanted a little bit quicker." It doesn't then necessarily change what you do forward from there. It's just saved you time, so you don't have to roll out an entire album or two before you get an idea of where it fits.
Agreed. I also think that more than saving time, it saves the very limited resources that the average independent artist has. And if they're being subjected with, playlist here, influencer campaign here, and not knowing how to react to those things and just looking for a silver bullet, and they need to know first kind of what is the potential trajectory of this sound and what is the historical context of that sound. And I implore more artists to test this out using Rocketship in the sense of like, I really believe this song is a single. Cool. When you place it into our platform, it will populate 20 songs that are the most similar to that have been released. And with that, it will also state what the success of those songs were. Did they chart on Billboard? Did they have radio airplay? If none of those songs you've ever heard, they're from artists that you don't know, and they're not singles and didn't have accolades correlated to it, that may either be that's one of two things. It's either you don't have a single and you should reevaluate, what you're making, or two, you're really progressive and you have a very big uphill battle to create that new noise and establishing precedents. But I don't believe that there's any sound or song or style that has just come out of the blue. It all is cyclical. Music is cyclical and it comes from somewhere. So like something had to walk so that another could run. And I'm a believer in that. And I think most A&Rs can believe that. So if you prescribe to that thought process, that historical context has relevance, then Rocketship is that first step in the process.
Yeah. This is really exciting. I love it. Yeah, it is though, isn't it? Well, you know this because you're on it. You're doing it.
I'll tell you, Johnny, it's like 20 months feels like forever. We've been sitting on this idea, and to execute something of this magnitude took a long time. And part of, starting a company is ensuring that there's product market fit, that the market is ready to have that conversation. I'll tell you, 20 months ago, most people that I knew did not understand the context of AI and what it could do for any business. My wife, we recently had a baby, and, I realized we were at that moment when she started using Claude to answer questions around her early, postpartum, things. Like it's when you watch a commercial, and Gemini has a commercial that is targeting millennial moms to take a picture of your soccer calendar so it will populate into your calendar, and do all these things for you. We've reached a place where people can understand and utilize AI. And that's where, I'm really thankful that Rocketship has launched today, and has the ability to help people today who understand, that context, at scale.
Yeah, that's very. So I can't go any further without saying congratulations
Thank
on the
you.
birth of your child. That's lovely. Sorry, my
Yeah,
eyes just. I was like, oh, that's lovely. Let's forget everything. That's brilliant.
Carson Goldie is upstairs right now. She's 4 months old. It's definitely put things in perspective as you launch a startup company and you're pursuing things. Having someone else relying on you, it definitely changes the perspective.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it kind of gives you a bit of a kick of energy as well, right? To
Oh,
go,
for
right,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to make this work now. I'm
Yes.
motivated even more so. Yeah.
Yep.
I get that. Good for you, man. Okay, so kind of, technology is leveling the playing field. Let's put it that way. But
Right.
you made a good point earlier about kind of how data gets you to a certain point, but then in comes the sort of the expertise, the ideas, that kind of thing. But that can be reactive, can't it? Once you've got something that you work with. So would it be fair to say that technology can level the playing field between sort of independent artists and the labels that have got big analytical tools?
I think technology throughout history has always leveled the playing field for, society. Um, as much as people have a dystopian thought process about the implications of AI over the next 5 or 10 years, and maybe some of those are true, um, there is the life that we're living now and what AI can help us today, to better become more efficient, to spend more time with our family. Um, and we're not alone in that thought process. I participated in Harvard's agentic AI course, and on in that course was about 300 of Fortune 500 brands putting their employees out there to truly understand the implications, not so that it could replace them, but so that they could make the most of their job and spend the time on the things that matter. And the things that matter, um, often, don't get the time it's needed. And I think from a musician standpoint, there is a lot of public discourse about, there's a country artist, Nate Smith, just made a post this weekend that he is over social media. He is sick of living and dying by social media. That has become his job. Um, I think a lot of artists can relate to that. And a lot of independent artists and developing artists, they feel like that they're spending more time creating content, editing content, creating copy, and organizing kind of the deployment of that content to trigger algorithms than making the music. And that was the job that they signed up for. That's the passion that they have, is writing the songs, producing the songs, performing the songs. So now we have technology leveling the field of like, okay, cool. Once I've put my song into Rocketship, I now have a home base to delegate, to automate copy, to automate whatever the case may be, to use my time more efficiently so that I can get out there and perform, so that
Yeah.
I can get back in the studio and create the music that matters. And I think human beings can really understand that context. I don't think AI musicians can. And so we're catering, to the human, music creator.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of this is really about an education lift, I think, to some people, to not
Right.
to embrace it, right? And to kind of go, oh right, yeah, actually, I was a bit against that, but now I have tried it out. It really does save me a lot of time. And instead of doing 10 hours a week on content, I can just do 1 hour because I know where I need to funnel it and tunnel it now.
And
Um,
the education is a big part of our platform and thought process. For every part of your marketing, of your music or your tour or your album, there are educational videos from, people in the business that are explaining the concepts. We also will start bringing in, affiliates into our platform. Platforms that exist that help artists, whether it's playlisting companies or influencer companies. Those, we will be vetting those companies and integrating them into our platform, so that if you don't know anything about TikTok influencers or you know nothing about playlisting, our platform can educate you, having listened to your song, and then drive you towards an outcome based on your budget or timeline, etc., with a partner that's been vetted, so that we preserve our resources and deploy them where possible. This economy, at least in the US, is not great right now. And so for artists, they're being hit the worst. I've spoken to a bunch of touring musicians who are talking about how touring is not possible in this economy. And that's scary. That's a scary place where live music is not, available to people. So hopefully tools like this, approaches like this will change the landscape and allow, artists to do what they love.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm just thinking out loud here, Zotz, but I'm just wondering, sometimes you get a recording artist that will kind of look at, let's say, a collection of songs that they've composed and recorded, and kind of maybe pick out, the songs that they feel are the ones that should be pushed as singles, or the ones that they might want to pitch for television opportunities, or whatever the case may be. And really what they're doing there is they're going with instinct. I like this. It feels fun to play
Of
live.
course.
Therefore, I think it's, and I get that. And that's part of the art, but it's a problem with it sometimes. And that is that when streaming analytics first came in, and artists and labels were able to look at that data and go, gosh, do you know that song there is the one that you didn't like, and it's got the highest listener to stream ratio, or it's got the highest save rate. So if we take that entire process and reverse it the other way around, it could be that you get an artist that puts their song into Rocketship and then says, actually, I don't like what Rocketship's telling me because of how good it is. And it might be that they go, actually, maybe the song that I really love, that I love playing live, is blinding my vision, and actually the thing I need to do with it is what it's telling me there.
You're absolutely correct. I'll push you a little bit farther, that genres in general are becoming blurred. Music in general is becoming very hybrid in terms of sounds. I came up with an artist, Post Malone, who made a certain type of music that he no longer makes today, and he's evolved in that sound. I think that as more people get influenced by the music around us and try different things, it's more likely that 10 songs get uploaded to Rocketship that are in a bunch of different, places. Like, I haven't defined my sound yet as an artist, and I'm looking to see what resonates the most, or what has the most potential for me to test. So it could be that someone uploads like, oh, this is a bit rock, this is a bit country, this has like a rap verse in it. Okay, cool. We're going to see what the market, and context of that exists before we spend a single dollar to give the artist help in creating their identity. And that will evolve over time. But the best part is that the platform will begin to have memories, and will begin to remember, the things that we place in here, and can start giving advice predicated on the evolution of that conversation and those inputs. And that's what's exciting. If you use Claude for your everyday life, the projects that I have in Claude continue to evolve, and the feedback loops get better and better. That is the power of AI in terms of the compounding effect. It's not one-to-one. It continues to grow.
Yeah, that's a very very good point. It's fascinating subject. Okay, final question for you, Zotz. 5 years from now, what will artists need to understand about building careers that they might be underestimating today?
I think it's similar to the initial conversation we had about just acting like a business, or at least using the tools like a business. I'll push you a little bit on we haven't touched on the AI creation of music and what that does to the marketplace. And I
Mm.
think that there's positives and negatives of like pushing the envelope on the human artist to create versus what, AI can create. Again, not going to touch good or bad, but the reality is, and I read an interesting post recently about a lot of people will make music via AI so that they can hear the sounds that they like with the words and stories that they can relate to. Because if you're a musician, or if you're a fan of an artist and you are listening to an artist, it's usually because you connect or resonate with their story, or their come up, or they're inspiring, right? because it's as close to your story, or it's, it gives you, some type of confidence or excitement around that. So I take it a step further of, if AI is creating music that is closer to home for most people, there is going to be more importance fallen on building fandom and the live performance and the physical relationship between an artist and a fan. And you have to make sure in 5 years that you know who is listening to who has a propensity to listen to your music, and who will be open to that fandomship, because that fandomship is what makes music different from any other business. The ability to not only listen to it, in your car or on your headphones, but physically go meet them, listen to them perform live in front of you, buy their merch, whatever the case may be. There's so many interactions and touch points. To be able to live that and experience that, which I hope every artist does, you have to understand who your audience is, and you have to be able to connect to them as human beings. I think that there is going to be this push and pull of fans worldwide of, do I resonate with what AI is making? Do I relate to a computer? Can I see that person live? Do I love listening to that song? Like, we're going to figure out what it means to be a fan in 5 years of music. And I think that if you're a human being, understanding who listens to your music, who has a propensity to like your music, but also become a fan, will be wildly more important, because that's going to be the financial success or break of your career.
Yeah. Very well put. Okay. Fine. Can I throw this at you, right? See what you think of this.
Go
Okay.
for it.
So let's imagine going back to that 5 years thing, right? So imagine you've got a metal band, right? And they're really inspired by, let's say, I don't know, sludge metal, right? And because they're inspired by sludge metal, and there's 5 of them in the band, and they all listen to it and they all love it, they're inspired by it, and therefore they label themselves a sludge metal band, right? And then they go around, they tour, they play everywhere as hard as they can. They're doing all the right things, and they tell everybody that they're a sludge metal band, right? And in actual fact, they're not. They're actually I don't know, a melodic mathcore band, right? And once Rocketship told them that that was where their lane was and what other songs do in that field, it enabled them to be able to go, oh, that's where we actually fit. All right, yeah, because we were just thinking about the music we make. We just thought we were that, but actually it turns out we're this thing over here.
I wonder how many times that has happened in history, where the artist or the lead singer or whoever self-identified with an act that did not have the same audience as their music, right? So we'll go back to, Post Malone, Post Malone, related to so-and-so and went after this, but that wasn't actually maybe his right fit. That moment that you talk about with the sludge man, I think the ability to change your course with that data becomes really interesting, because if you live in Boston, Massachusetts, and you're just waiting for that opportunity, and maybe you have $500 to spend on an opening slot, at the House of Blues, and it's between, 2 genres of music, that data may make the difference between going in front of the band that you didn't know or didn't think you related to, but their audience had a propensity to like your music. Yeah. And thus, once you played in front of them, the reception was wildly different than you and your ego as an artist just relating to the superficial, position of that other artist that their fans had no connection. And it probably happens every day. I think your scenario is very likely. And I think it's only going to increase in terms of people's want and desire to be like someone, but actually sounds like someone else. And I'll leave you with that. The amount of artists who privately beta tested our platform before we launched the public beta, it was so refreshing to see them in real time react to songs and artists that they had never considered. Now, really? there are some mainstream country artists that you just know that it's going to show, the artist that you expect to hear. But there's also some artists in there that they're I don't even know who that artist is, but I can't wait to discover them and start changing my advertising approach, changing my content approach, changing how I speak to the fans based on that notion to get a better result.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. So you're making that happen already. I think that'll just happen more and more and more, where people get those eureka kind of penny drop moments and go, wow, never heard of that. Don't know what that is. Just so happens that actually we have been doing that all along. We just didn't know what it was called.
And today, that opportunity is through a subscription with Rocketship, where you can place your song into the platform and create a marketing strategy based on, the platform listening to your music. The tomorrow is that there are real A&Rs and investors associated with our platform that are ready to invest in songs early. And that's the long, term goal that we're trying to get to, where, the deployment of capital and investment in music will happen at an earlier stage based on those sounds, based on those, potential audiences, and based on the potential of a song before it ever hits the TikTok algorithm.
Yeah. You've combined so many different aspects of Createch with what you've built. I love it. I really appreciate your time. I know what a busy dude you must be, work-wise and family life, right, as well. So
Yes, it has been quite a journey to get here. But I truly appreciate you giving me the time to talk about something I'm clearly so passionate about. Appreciate your reception of the product as well. When you build something progressive, you don't expect that everyone is going to have a positive or a great reaction to it. And the more times I hear, the positive feedback like you're giving me today, it really motivates us to move forward and keep pursuing this.
Oh, good man. Mate, I get it, right? I totally get it. And I think it's really clever. And I boldly predict you're going to do very well with it. And I look forward to seeing how it all unfolds.
Appreciate it.
Good for you. I appreciate you coming on and talking about it, man. It feels like it's early, I know, right? But sometimes the exciting things are like on the way up. And this is that, right? So thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, there you have it. What an impressive guy. What did you think, everybody? I am really, really excited about Rocketship. I must say, and I know I say this a lot, by the way, everybody. You probably get sick of me saying this, but I'll say it anyway. No one's paying me to endorse anybody, right? That's not how this thing works. I pick out people and organizations that I think are going to add value to you, to the music creator community, whether that's you making music or you working as a part of a team or a music company, music tech company, a record company, a music publisher, a manager, or wherever you personally sit in this wild, wonderful musical world, right? And I genuinely think that what we've heard today from Zotz is a game changer. I think it's a trailblazing move. I look back on all the conversations that I've had on this podcast and off air, if you will, where I see so many crucial intersections into what Zotz has done. So, for example, the idea of being able to go, what is this music? Where does this fit? To all the way for artists and labels and stuff, but all the way over to kind of more createch companies that kind of have tried to figure out a way of doing what he has now done. If I then intersect that with other areas of the music industry, and I think to myself, yeah, if we look at subscription services or startups from years ago that then got acquired by major labels and kept as intranet systems to be able to use on a corporate level. Nothing wrong with that. It's just business, but it does mean that it's away from other people. It's away from artists and it's away from independent labels to be able to access that. And actually Rocketship have done the opposite. They've built something that's become available to anybody that wants to try it. It really, truly puts the I into AI. And I am truly grateful that Zotz came on to talk about that today, and also that he's done it, right? I wish him good luck. I wish you good luck. I wish you a great day. Until next time, may the force be with you.
The music